We don't deserve something. Maybe it's not for us. That's for people like X, Y, and Z. A lot of it is internal oppression that really holds a lot of people back from economic freedom. Despair is a danger zone.
That may be the canary in the coal mine. Like, you say that hope is not a feeling, it's a cognitive process.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Can you elaborate?
It activates a part of our brain. It doesn't solve the problems, but it activates the part of our brain that helps us solve problems. It releases dopamine, but the kind of dopamine that helps with our motivation. So it motivates us. What it does is it helps us to separate from feeling like we can't do something, those limiting beliefs, those limiting thoughts, to realize that there are options. And that actually affects how we feel. And so when we attach how we feel with what's happening in our mind, it's like a double power. Mm-hmm. And that's why hope is so powerful, because it can help start to make us feel like we can do things, because it's activating the parts of our brain that help us be more strategic, help us problem solve.
You said it triggers the part of the brain that is responsible for motivation. Can you explain more of that? What part of the brain is responsible for motivation, and how does that section of the brain motivate us?
Let's talk about neuroplasticity first.
Yeah, great.
Because that's really what we're doing, is we're interrupting the thought cycles and the loops that make us feel like we can't do something, we can't figure it out, that there are no solutions, that this is just how things are. And those are these thought patterns that start to circulate so much, they go on loop so much that we start to identify them with who we are. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like thought paralysis at some point, because you really don't think you're capable of doing anything anymore because of those loops, those thoughts. And that's what I have the most up close, like I witness, I hear, I study, is people in those thought cycles. Mm. And so the work of hope is to break up those thought cycles, to interrupt them just enough to where we can start to reroute our thoughts, and we can start to rewrite those neural pathways in our mind. And so the biggest thing I would say that is how hope works is really interrupting those negative thought patterns. It's really attached mostly to me in my work to neuroplasticity, because it's that is what's affecting people on a day-to-day with their lack of decision-making, the relationships they do or not have with whatever it is, whether it's finance, people, their workplace, their home life. And it's interrupting those thought patterns so that we can start to build in our minds a route towards possibility.
Mm. What are some examples that you've seen of people who have negative thought patterns, who get stuck in those loops as it relates to issues around money or career?
Ooh. Okay, so this is going to be maybe controversial that I say this, but growing up, I'm biracial. I'm from a mixed, diverse family, and I come from a community that's very diverse in many ways, economically, ethnic-wise. And one of the things that we used to say for fun was like survival mentality, like scarcity mindset, you know, like, oh, you're just in that survival mindset. That's why you can't save money, you know, like, but I want to bring this full circle in saying that a lot of the work and the experience I have with people they say imposter syndrome. And I don't believe that is like the blanket case for people feeling and making the decisions they do around money, especially. I think a lot of it is internal oppression. I think you're in situations where there's systems in place, there's maybe a lack of exposure to what economic health and wealth could be. And I think at some point we internalize these belief systems. We think because of who we are, because of where we come from, because of things we've been through, we start to believe that maybe we don't deserve something. Maybe it's not for us. That's for people like X, Y, and Z. And so these internal thoughts, once we start to believe them, that's when we start to build internal oppression. So it's not, I don't belong here. It's, this is not part of my identity, part of who I am. We believe the thoughts that we are less than because of maybe whatever the background is. And it could have nothing to do with any one specific demographic, but it is these thoughts that go beyond imposter syndrome. And to me, it's the internal oppression that really holds a lot of people back from economic freedom, from freedom in all areas of their life, because that's where it starts to me. Because with hope, it's about activating and it's about action. So it's activating the parts of your brain and it's about taking action.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, in my work, I've realized that the missing piece was a sense of worth. Mm-hmm. Having a sense of worth is important, not just in having hope, but in sustaining it. And that's where I found the difference is we can build hope, but to sustain it, it has to be tied to a sense of worth, which for me, not most people, but a lot of people I've worked with struggle with internal oppression.
Before we go down the road of how to develop hope and some of the practices that people can use, mm-hmm. I first want to talk through the opposite, hopelessness, mm-hmm. because we see a lot of, and there's a closely related concept, which is despair, mm-hmm. which I think Viktor Frankl defined mm-hmm. as suffering without purpose. And we right now we hear a lot about deaths of despair, which I know during COVID that was increasing. I don't know what the post-COVID stats are, if that is continuing to increase or not. But that seems like despair seems like a pervasive and growing issue. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about what leads to hopelessness followed by despair? Despair
is, we get into what I call like a danger zone. Mm-hmm. And what I always tell people right up front is that the book and my work and what I believe genuinely through and through is not that we're never going to be hopeless. I want to make that really clear, that it's not about having hope all the time. It's about having a process back to it and knowing that that's possible. Because when we get into a place of despair, we can stay there for a really long time. Mm. And I worked in crisis intervention work during the pandemic. I actually built a crisis hotline that reached over 50 countries in 10 months. We had we had a training program for all of our volunteers who had zero crisis intervention background. And the one thing that I realized in running this crisis line was we would engage in conversations with people via text messaging. And within like 15 minutes, they could get to a place of despair to having hope. Mm. And there were some key things that we would do to really help encourage that process. But the number one thing was that they were so grateful that a real person was talking to them. Mm. They would say all the time, "Are you a real person? Are you real?" And I'm at 3 a.m. in my bedroom, like, "Yeah, I'm real. I'm not sleeping because I want to talk to you. So yes, I am real." And that was always such a shock factor that someone wanted to listen. It makes me emotional to think about that somebody wanted to listen to a mom who was struggling with a newborn in Asia, to someone who was in a domestic violence situation in Europe, and just knowing that someone was there to listen. Because thoughts of I like to say that no one is immune to feeling hopeless and getting to that place of like feeling like there's no way out. Mm-hmm. It doesn't discriminate. Despair doesn't discriminate. And it can happen to anyone at any time, high performing people who are in great situations, who are happy. Mm-hmm. And some of this is different, like clinical, but sometimes the process to it is really just starting to believe maybe a small thought. Mm-hmm. And then that thought grows and grows. So I explained it actually yesterday. I did a keynote event yesterday, and I had this physical representation of a brick. Mm-hmm. And so someone was holding a brick, and I made the brick light. So it was not heavy like a traditional brick. And I said, this is a thought. This is a thought that you have maybe that might be discouraging you right now. So think of what the thought is. Okay. And then they're holding this brick as a thought. So if we can imagine, maybe hold the book to do it as a representation. It's not too heavy, right?
All right. Yeah. No,
so you're doing it like that. You look really in shape. So this isn't too hard, right?
Yeah.
No? Okay. So it's not too hard.
Not too hard.
Okay. So if you do this for a little bit, you're carrying something, mm-hmm. but it's not really, it's lightweight. It's not a big deal.
It's lightweight. It's fine.
You can mess around with it. You can probably walk around. You can do the things. But after a while, even something light, even something small can start to weigh, can start to feel heavy. And then I'm going to add my coffee.
Sorry, I got it.
So now it's still probably easy, but a little bit more challenging.
I can feel that it's heavier.
Mm-hmm. And so what we want to do is build a process to work through this thought. This thought is not good or bad. It's neutral. It's having a process to work through this thought. And now you can see that over time, these thoughts that are not processed can start to build. And what I have seen and experienced in my own life is we don't always have a process to process what we feel. So we go on feeling detours. And we do all kinds of things like distract ourselves, deny things. We get defensive. We devalue what they are. Not a big deal. And there's reasons for that. But these feeling detours create the habit of us not feeling our feelings.
I notice all the detours begin with the letter D. So the detours.
I love wordplay.
Yeah. So the detours are distraction, denial, dismissal.
Yes, dismissal, defensiveness.
And those are the various detours that, if unprocessed, can lead to despair.
Yeah. Distraction, which is huge for this day and age with social media, technology, AI.
Right.
Distraction is so accessible. We're overly exposed. And I don't want to go on a tyrant here if you don't want to, but the amount of information we're inundated with, our brains are not like, we're trying to keep up. And our ability to process it is limited. But if we don't have a process in place at all, now we can become desensitized. The biggest danger isn't actually despair, it's apathy. It's having like no feeling.
Right.
And getting into that place. That's a very scary place.
Right.
Because you could do some things, not just to yourself, but to other people when you don't feel at all.
Right.
And so we really, for me, I just really want to help people equip them with tools, because especially in the book gives a lot of context to why I'm so passionate about this issue. And a lot of it is because of our current and growing, I call it the social experiment, the giant social experiment of being online all the time and being exposed to so many different ideas, different people. Now we don't know what's real or not real.
Right. And the stats are people spend on average 7 hours a day looking at a screen.
I was working with junior high kids yesterday, and the average they told me was 10.
Yeah.
10 hours a day. I'm like, y'all awake that long? 10 hours. That's crazy. But it's actually not.
Right. Well, and it makes sense. Well, I mean, maybe not at the junior high level, but certainly for adults, many of the people who are listening to this are remote workers. And so if you're a remote worker, then all day at work, you might sit alone, isolated in an empty room, perhaps in an empty apartment or an empty home, looking at a screen, and that's your whole workday. So we've got kind of two things going on there. One is looking at a screen. The other is that isolation.
And the isolation really we saw just be completely propelled with the shutdowns, with COVID. I was in one of the strictest counties in the country. I couldn't get a cup of coffee for like a year at my favorite spot. It was very shut down. So the isolation physically was very real during that time. But what we're seeing is it started before. So the surge of loneliness, even though we're hyper connected, started before COVID. COVID just like blew the roof off of it. But it was happening with the same, in the studies, you'll see it's in parallel with the rise of social media and the use of social media.
And why is that? Is that because social media gives us a false sense of connectivity, and so we don't seek out the real thing?
That's a great question. And I think it's twofold. I think that people aren't using social media for depth and connection the way that they innately would desire it. And what I mean by that is most people, and it's still happening, most people consume. So they go into a social space, but they're consuming. They're not contributing. And relationship takes risk. It's twofold, right? So even if, say, I left a comment, that's not in real time. So I'm not getting a reaction in real time. We're not actually working through something, building relationship skills in real time. You can go back, go to a dictionary, check something, come back and have a conversation. But the interpersonal skills that we develop in real time are just more and more scarce. So we're seeing people's attention span just, it was a goldfish. Now, I don't even know what it is now, but it is just shortening so much. And the ability to have those conflict resolution skills which is the richness of a relationship. If you've never fought with someone you love, you do not love that person, okay? Because you got to love through the hard. You got to have tough moments to build meaning and depth. And so when we're only engaging in a way where we're consuming, it really limits our ability to develop deep connections. So I think it's not that social media can't contain some deep connections. I think it's the way most people are using it is for consumption or for some skill development, to learn something. And that usually is for the person, the individual, because they want to develop. And so it's not really for building a relationship, if that makes sense. The tools we're developing are usually personal, not always relational, if it's not promoting a person being with other people, if that makes sense.
So you mean if a person uses social media to develop a skill like coding or learning the guitar, it's great that they're learning a skill, but like learning the guitar doesn't help you make friends unless you join a band.
Yes. Or saying like, let's learn in a group setting. Let's do like a mastermind class where you're with other people and we're learning together. So I think that those things are happening, but not to the extent that the isolated learning and self-development are happening.
Right. And there is also an acceleration of that as not only does work become remote, but also much more learning becomes remote as well.
It can be almost completely isolated now with the way AI, the newest technology of things being developed. I mean, it is incredible what it can build, but what I am already sensing and terrified of and hopeful that we can move beyond in a positive way is that we don't look to tools like AI as people are seeking it as a companion. And that we're not switching relationship with people with the technology that mimics humanness, but can never actually fully challenge us, can't actually, this real-time conversation can't happen online.
Right.
With an AI, even though it's getting really close.
Right. You and I were actually talking before we started recording about why we do these interviews in person.
Which I love. I love that.
Yeah, and that was something that I recently began insisting on, probably about a year and a half ago. I began insisting that all interviews be done face to face, for exactly that reason. The richness of conversation is so different than when you're speaking to somebody remotely. We just saw in Asia, I forget which country, I think Japan or Korea, the first human to AI marriage. There was a woman in, I forget which country, but she actually had a wedding.
Yes.
And she married an AI chatbot. So that may be the canary in the coal mine. Like, we seem to be heading towards a future in which chatbots do substitute for certain human relationships.
And, I won't go too deep into that without saying, it makes me sad. It breaks my heart. And it breaks my heart because I know how much people crave connection and to be seen and to feel heard and to feel known and to accept anything less than their worth, to accept something, one, that's not real, but two, that is not worthy of them. That breaks my heart because I want people to have freedom to experience the fullness of their humanness. I want people to be able to feel angry, to be sad, to be happy and joyful. But it's this constant avoidance of things that maybe just feel too much, too painful, too hard. And I say a lot to people, have you been through hard things? And usually they always say yes. I'm like, you can do hard things. I truly believe you can do hard things. And I see the unlock in real time when people actually process a feeling in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And, just to come back a little bit to how this impacts finances, because this is foundational for people who avoid financial decisions, for people who avoid building those habits, the external habits. It really starts in the emotional habits first. And hope is foundational in people building these habits where it's locked in their mind and in their heart so that they can do the things externally, right? Like talk to that person instead of going to a chatbot, right? Once it's emotional, once the patterns start to happen emotionally, then we can start to do them externally. So like when it comes to finances, I feel like if someone is festering the thought of what's the point? It's not going to get better. That's foundational in whether they choose to make a step forward or not.
And you hear that from time to time, people who are so deep in debt, for example, that when a person has that much debt, they have a feeling of hopelessness. And then they get into even more debt because they're already in, their thinking is, well, I'm already in so much. What's an extra $50? And for that same reason, it becomes a real challenge to pull out of debt because necessarily that does have to happen in, $50 increments at a time, $10 increments at a time.
They're the small habits that make the most monumental difference. And I would like to acknowledge if you're in that position, it can be cognitive overload. So it's not all on you. There's something happening. There's a lot going on, and it's very difficult for people to navigate cognitive overload. And it's like if we did the book and the coffee and we just kept adding and adding and adding, and that was the debt, right? It's just adding. To sift through it, I have a loved one who is a hoarder. And the amount of excess is discouraging because it's like, where do you start? Because everywhere you look, there's just piles of things, important things and not important things, right? But these things are, whether they hold value or not to that person, it's still overwhelming, right? So that's an external overwhelm, right? So the thoughts in our mind can be the cognitive overload. And so when you have both, there's a very real debt, and then there's the thought of all the real debt. That's just like a compound. But it's what you said. That's the first step. It's these small habits that you build. It's what you think might be insignificant, but over time, it's those little subtle interruptions in our thought process that slowly start to rewrite our neural pathways. So it's the little habits. It's the small interruptions. And I say the biggest and the best way to have those little moments internally so that we can make better decisions externally or more healthy ones for us is maybe. I call them maybe moments. And so instead of believing something is a fact, I can't do this, it's too much, maybe I can. And maybe interrupts it enough to just create a little wedge in our mind where now maybe if I say it enough, I start to rewrite some of those thoughts.
So now we're shifting from, we've been describing the problem, but we'll shift to some of the solution here. So one of them is interrupting that thought with maybe. So I'm in a ton of debt. I can't get out of this debt. Maybe I can.
Yeah.
Or maybe I can pay off $1,000 worth of this debt in the next 90 days. Flipping to the other side, people who want to retire early or fully pay for their kids' college tuition or buy a second home, or they have some like aspirational goal. That seems different because it's sort of starting from a place of hope. But I do also hear people with those big goals getting discouraged along the way. Would the maybe work there too?
Oh, 100%. Because maybe is about creating momentum. So if we are starting from a place of like, we're on the up and up, that doesn't mean we're not going to hit obstacles. We actually are. The more your path becomes like more linear, the more obstacles I feel like are going to be unique that feel like, who else can I talk to about this? Because maybe not as many people are on the same trajectory you are. especially if you're going in a direction that is maybe just doing some of the things that you said, getting a second house, getting more things, gaining more assets in that way, because maybe a lot of people, don't have that same trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
So the obstacles might not even just be something like a roadblock towards making that happen financially. It could just be like, why am I doing this?
Mm.
And that could derail us. What's the point? Losing focus, losing vision, losing the connection to the purpose, right? And I talk a lot about, I don't really promote self-help. I like to talk about self-discovery and self-alignment. And really, we build our life by aligning to the things we value. And so it's less about things being right or wrong or good or bad, and more about, do they align with our values and our belief systems? And we could very easily and subtly kind of lose that, especially when a lot of people around us might not be doing it or encouraging us to do it or see the point. Because entrepreneurs or anyone who's kind of rewriting their story in a unique way to them, it is a process to constantly believe in it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and the challenge of constantly believing in it is that oftentimes you're surrounded by people who are actively discouraging you. So entrepreneurship is a prime example. Many people, when they say that they want to start a business, will be surrounded by well-meaning friends and family who are, they're concerned.
Yeah. And I laugh just because the amount of ideas I've told people, and they're like, what? Exactly.
And so from a place of concern, they say, why don't you keep your W-2 job?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you not take that risk?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you not be the tall poppy?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's funny you said that, because we're a little bit talking more about solutions, and risk is, I think, the primary thing that I would love to encourage this generation specifically, because this generation has way too many options for comfort and convenience. And I think that emotional risk is just getting, it's gaining atrophy.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear is real. There's fear. We all have fear. And that's a great sign that someone cares. But we also have courage. And allowing people to see you activate that is contagious. Then they start to be courageous.
Mm. Sometimes, I at least speaking from my own experience, in my healthier relationships, people who discouraged me from starting a business, now that there's proof of concept, they say, wow, that's great that you did that. I'm so proud. And maybe that reflects in their life and maybe it doesn't, but at a minimum, they at least are happy for what has unfolded.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, the people who thought it was a harebrained idea
mm-hmm.
and then saw it work out, I'm thinking of a couple relationships where it imploded the relationship, where they were almost angry that it worked out.
Did they express that in a way that, they let you know that, or you just knew? Or both?
Well, I'm thinking of one person in particular, one friend in particular, who began to really poke at my sense of self-worth.
Mm.
And because I trusted her so much, I internalized very negative things that she told me about myself. And I really believed her. And that very much brought me down. And it took years actually for me to figure out that the things that she was telling me about myself were not true. And that all started when, she and I, when we were 19, 20, we were starting from the same place.
Mm. And
when our life paths diverged, that was when she began telling me very negative things about myself. And so in hindsight, it started, I believe, when she became jealous or angry or upset, or I guess envious would be the right word, and envious or angry or upset about the way in which our paths diverged. But she didn't express that in a constructive way. She expressed it by telling me that I was a bad person in a way that, and I believed her because I trusted her.
Mm. Yeah, the trust was so so potent that even if she said something not real and not good, you were going to believe it.
Right.
First of all, I'm sorry that happened to you. I have to wonder if there's also, we know that a lot of people can project things, right? When they're struggling, they project them onto other people.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you have navigated that ever since, or if you guys have mended or not. But I think what is powerful is that you're able to identify the difference now. And you said it took you a little bit.
It took me years.
What was something that helped that start to process in the direction of like healing?
Like what was something that's helped me recognize what was happening?
Yeah, or to start to decide I'm going to navigate through this.
Right. Because I blindly trusted her, the thing that helped me see what was going on was recognizing times that she lied to me and also lied about me to others. And once I began, and when the lies were subjective, then it's hard to call something subjective a lie. It's subjective, it's opinion. But when the lies were fact-based, then it became very clear to see, right? Because it was like, well, that's just factually untrue. And so that was what helped me kind of break out of blindly trusting her, and then start to see what was going on.
And then the feeling of mistrust, do you still, or is trust something that is something like that you're still working through having with newer relationships, or do you feel like?
Oh, no. I think I have the opposite problem. I just blindly trust people,
And I would say blindly with your friend might not, maybe it wasn't blind because you had a relationship for a long time. So maybe it was an earned trust in some ways.
Yeah.
And then became more abused trust.
Right.
But it maybe started out in a place that was real and healthy for both of you at some point. And so now you're like, I still trust everybody.
Yeah.
and that's beautiful because you see the hope in everyone. You still have hope. And I think that is a superpower of yours, to be completely crushed by a very important relationship in your life and to still say, but I'm still going to have some hope.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But anyway, that I guess that whole conversation started because you had mentioned that if people are courageous, that courage can be contagious. So I guess we started down that road because I shared a personal example of a time that did not happen.
Yeah.
But could you share some examples of times that does happen?
Yeah, I see it happen. I'm going to give an example of a keynote event I did where I had, I invite people on stage. So I'm very interactive. I don't like to lecture. I don't do traditional keynotes. I'm very interactive. I believe in real-time live experiences help bring us together quicker than anything I could tell you. So in this way, I was like, okay, we're bringing some people on stage. And I remember after the event, I'm going to fast forward. So after the event, this young woman comes up to me and she's in tears, like very emotional, but it's like happy tears. So, you can tell a difference, right? And so she's like smiling through her tears. She's emotional. And I'm like, tell me about like what you're feeling. She said she had a panic attack in the middle of the event and had to leave. She left the event because she was around a lot of people, and that was not something that she was just struggling with her anxiety in environments where there were a lot of people. So she had been struggling for a little bit with this. And so she goes to the bathroom. She has a full-on panic attack. And then I'm staring at her as she's like joyfully crying. And I'm like, I remember you. You volunteered at the end and you came on stage. So the woman who had a panic attack in the middle of the event, who brought herself back, volunteered in front of thousands of people and was chosen. I don't know how that happened. It just happened, and came on stage And the freedom she unlocked, the courage she unlocked, it was because she had seen other people doing it beforehand. So it was this contagious courage. And it doesn't always have to be in that capacity. Like, I'm going to talk, I'm going to share something out loud. It could be picking up a paintbrush again when you haven't for a while and investing in that side of yourself. It could be picking up the phone. Well, we always have the phone in our hand, but it could be dialing somebody who comes to mind that maybe you miss. You know, it's those things are courageous, because complacency and comfort, they kill courage. They kill them. And we need, you know, to tie it all into like finances and everything, we need courage to take these leaps into having economic freedom, to having a healthy relationship with our finances. We need to take courage in that, because it's very discouraging when you see the housing market right now, the gas prices going up, the schooling costs, just all of the things. It can be very discouraging, but courage is in that word too. So I think we need courage just as much as hope.
We're talking about, so one of the habits to build hope is that embrace of risk. Is there more to say? Because I want to talk about the other habits as well, but I don't want to prematurely leave the topic of risk, because it is such an important one. Is there anything that?
Yeah, I think, you know, kind of just bringing it back to some of the things you shared about your former friend, the risk is huge, because we can be rejected, we could be hurt. So risk is real. There's very real reason for risk. But I believe that when you choose to be brave, no matter the outcome, you'll like who you're becoming. You'll appreciate that side of yourself. And the outcomes will not always go in our favor. They won't. But I believe that when we choose who we're going to be, we can't control how other people are. But when we choose who we're going to be and we align those choices with what we value, like we're going to be a thoughtful friend, even if someone doesn't appreciate it, we're choosing that, right? That's a value. That's something, that's a principle that we're going to always make choices aligning to that. Then even if someone ends up not appreciating that about us and we no longer have a friendship in that time, that we can walk away knowing we still like who we're becoming.
Right. So it's staying inside of that locus of control, you know, the integrity in what you do regardless of how others react.
I have to tell my 10-year-old all the time, because they got a little drama in a little junior high, and we always have to talk about it could seem basic or simple, but if we don't acknowledge that on a consistent basis, it's very easy to be influenced by how other people are acting, or to allow ourselves to get discouraged or become apathetic because someone's just the way that they are. So we're going to be that way too over time. That's especially real in like a marriage. If one person's maybe not caring, then it could be like, well, why am I going to care? Right.
Right. Right. And you mentioned earlier that apathy is the greatest danger.
And we stop trying.
Right. I want to stay on apathy for a moment. What should a person do if they realize that they've become apathetic? Again, I'm thinking about finances. There are some people, you brought up the housing market earlier. There are some people who are so discouraged. They'll say, you know, I look at the price of housing. I look at my income. There's a big disconnect. I don't think I'm ever going to buy a home. So why not spend it all on lattes and avocado toast? You know, why not have those small indulgences, because I'm never going to get to these bigger goals. I don't know if I'm describing apathy necessarily. I guess I'm more describing discouragement, but
they could be shutting down a part of their thought process because they don't want to address something that may seem that it can't be worked through, right? So they're slowly shutting down, right? To the point where they're just like, whatever.
Right.
Is that kind of what you're saying? Yeah. They're like, whatever. It's no big deal.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Right? I would say I paired each of the habits with a feeling framework, because for me, everything external is tied back to an internal. So if we can keep working through the internal, then maybe we can make those decisions we'd be more proud of ultimately. And I would say the one that comes to mind for that specific case is to write down or to finish this sentence, I'm staying silent because.
Okay. So in that case, let's just
Mm-hmm.
let's do a mock. All right. So let's assume we'll say I'm 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I make $55,000.
Mm-hmm.
I live in New York City.
God bless you.
I've
been there. There. We're both Hell's Kitchen ladies. So.
And even buying a cheap place, a quote unquote cheap place, is maybe something like a studio in outer Queens is like $500,000, right? And so I just don't see how that is possible. And so, okay, so to the exercise then, I'm staying silent because. First of all, am I staying silent or am I loudly complaining to all of my friends? Like, prices are too damn high.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's different than staying silent about the specific struggle. So if we outlined what you just said, right? If that person wrote down or said in their mind, I don't think that it's possible because I'm 24, the housing market's this, all those things. Well, the first thing we're doing might not seem like a big deal, but we're doing the thing that most people don't do. We're acknowledging something, a feeling, okay, as opposed to just like making it like it's not a big deal and it's just festering and growing. And it's going to start to impact it because humor sometimes is a way to deflect or, when we make jokes about things, it actually could be coming in a place of like deep pain, right?
Right.
So it could seem very simple that, hey, we're going to actually like diary about this for a minute. Like what am I really feeling is the struggle. And I believe that one is not only therapeutic, but two, it starts to put words to things. Whereas sometimes like maybe they weren't even getting that specific, right? With my age might come into this. This is going to be my first property. And then we can start to even think about, okay, well, there are, when we put it down in that way, we can start to think about maybe our brain starts to activate towards like what are other 24-year-olds going through. And maybe we start to feel less alone because we realize there are a lot of people who might be, and it could start to alleviate the parts that are shutting down our brain so that the hopelessness that's like shutting down the parts of our brain that can start problem solving, right? So what we're doing is we're allowing ourselves space so that we can identify language, face something that's hard, build that process. And then do I have the solution for that 24-year-old? No, I do not. But I believe when you start to build those processes, you will activate the parts of your brain that help you to problem solve.
Well, let's say, because you mentioned, a lot of 24-year-olds are in the same boat. Let's take the same scenario, but let's imagine now this person is 34 and they're looking around. So imagine now I'm 34 years old. I make $55,000 a year. I live in New York City, right? So you imagine that 34-year-old is looking around at all of their friends and they're seeing friends who make double or even triple what they do. They're seeing friends who are buying, even modest one-bedroom apartments, but that's even something like that feels out of reach. So buying assets, buying a car, right? Like they see friends who are succeeding, and they feel like, wait a second, why am I the only one that's been left behind?
This is a great scenario because this actually is in parallel to what happens online. We see all of these things happening. We see people. I cannot, for the life of me, understand how a mom looks so put together before 8 a.m. I just like, how are you creating content before 8 a.m.? I know you got to wake up at 4 to do that, but I can't be doing that. Okay. I can't. I'm sorry.
I've heard a lot of those videos are not actually shot at 8 a.m. They just turn the clocks to say 8 a.m.
Okay. Maybe that makes me feel better. Because it makes me feel lazy when I'm like, I did not wake up at 6 to go for a 2-mile run. before nursing and all of the things with my kids, and then work. But I would say the parallel is we're seeing things, and I would question, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on what is the realness behind, is maybe those friends, are they acquiring more debt we don't see? Are they getting help from family we don't see? Did they have some sort of fund before that? Are there other things contributing, first of all, unique situations? And then I would always say, even if we knew all the information, even if we're like, that person didn't do it on their own, right? We can still feel slighted a little bit. We can still, even if we got all the facts, we can still feel some kind of way, right? Because why them, not me? And I think what helps us come back is that alignment again, and really having identified, I call them like preset, they're preset principles of like, what do we value? Do we value the same things that they do? Is money the value in that way? Money for whatever they're using it for? Is the values attached to how I want to live my life? Because I believe how you live your life is really a design. And if you're uniquely designing your own life, like the way you would redesign this room, if it was blank walls, is going to be very different than me.
Right.
And feeling empowered by that and not disempowered. And that's how we can be able to cheer on someone without them taking from us. We can still feel the slight. But the thing is I have a process to feel that feeling so that I can go back to how I actually am, which is I really care for my friend and I'm happy for them. But I got to work through my issue first to get to that place. And that's okay to feel like maybe other people have different advantages maybe, or have different resources that they're dealing with, but that could get them to where they are faster. But where you're going is so unique that you're going to want to stay on your path. It just might not be on the same timeline. And I think we have to think about our choices and be realistic. Like my husband sometimes says that a lot of women who date in the city, we have a lot of friends who have been in the city who sometimes struggle to find men in the city. And he's like, they're all out in the urban places. They're all out in the suburbs, the ones who want to, and this is just a generalization example, who want to settle down. And I'm not saying that's true or not, but it's just an example of like where we decide to live does have outcomes, right? The job we take does have outcomes. But just because that situation is how it is, that does not mean that there aren't a ton of other options to be creative in how you get your goals. It just is not going to look like other people, and that's a good thing.
So the exercise that you described, I'm staying silent about this because, so I'm based on what you've just said, I'm reinterpreting that sentence of, you might be cracking jokes about it, or loudly complaining about it, but like you're staying silent to yourself around real, legitimate reframes and solutions.
Yeah, like the pain points.
Yeah.
Another follow-up question is, what would support look like or feel like? And going back to the I stayed silent, a lot of people feel shame about the real issues of what maybe they're struggling with financially or relationally, educationally, you can go on. There's a lot of shame, and not wanting to worry people is another reason people stay silent. They don't want to be a burden. They don't want to worry anyone. And one of the other third really big ones is they don't think people care. But it's addressing those things, identifying, putting language to them. It starts to take the power away from them. It starts to allow us the space to navigate them now. Whereas opposed to it was this closed box way over there, that guilt or that shame of addressing this or being in this situation, right? Now I'm starting to open the box. And the follow-up to that would be, what would support look like or feel like for me, so that you can build those pillars to help support you as you navigate through it. And it could be different at a different time in your life. It could, different seasons, the support will look and feel different for you that you need. But identifying it, and why I say that's so important is because most people will tackle that mountain of debt on their own. Most people will tackle the cognitive overload on their own. Most people will do the isolated route because they don't want to be a burden. They don't want to worry anyone. So if we can identify, especially if you're a high achiever, very independent mindset, I got this, I'm going to do this, I don't need any help. And maybe if I did, I'm still going to figure it out. If you have that high performance mentality, you're less likely to say, yo, I need help. And that's why it's so powerful. You're constantly asking yourself, if you have any struggle on a daily basis, you can literally ask yourself, anytime you struggle, if you think it's small, if you think it's a large thing, what would support or look like or feel like for me right now?
Right. You know, I'm thinking about this community. A lot of people would say just having a community of like-minded people who are all doing the same thing, whether that thing is paying off debt or that thing is trying to retire early, having that community of like-minded people with shared goals. Of course, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that community generally comes from looking at a screen, because you might not have that in your small town or even in your mid-sized town. So often those do end up being online communities.
And I think that's a really powerful way to build your support system. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think the more hybrid we can do, the better. So I think it's maybe lifting a rock that you don't know what's under, because maybe there are things in your community, or I would say even better, maybe there's things that you should start in your community, because there are other people in your community. I have traveled to hundreds and hundreds of the cities in this country. I have seen food deserts. I have been in places where I lose phone service, like within a mile of where I'm going, where there is no hotel nearby, some places where there's just a motel, somewhere it's just like an inn. I have been to many, many cities in this country. And I will tell you that when I work with communities, in these communities, the struggles can be more common than you think. And the tools and solution and sense of community and finding those could be a lot more prevalent than we might think. So I believe that the tools we get online, if we could just keep also growing the in-person communities wherever we are, I think that that's just a dualness that's like so powerful. That's such a force.
So the takeaway for people listening is start a personal finance meetup or a financial independence meetup in wherever it is you live. Even if that meetup is one or two people.
Because it's really about, if connection and community is what we're after, then once we learn how someone is, the things we like about how people build it, the ones that we're benefiting from, the ones online, then we have some tools to where we can do it. And we can do it in your way. And it doesn't have to become something, but it can.
Right.
It could just be, I'm doing this because I learned some things that helped me. And I know I can't be the only one in this community. And maybe no one chose the first time. But that's not the point. It's about risking because of the value, no matter the outcome. But I truly believe there will be an outcome that you're proud of.
Yeah. Let's talk through, so we've talked through the habit of embracing risk. Let's talk through the other 4 habits.
I think we kind of identified the first one, which is like reflection, which is like the entry point of like identifying things, being able to face things, not going on the feeling detours.
Right.
And that's the feeling framework for that is like, what am I struggling with? And just kind of filling out that sentence, filling out that prompt I was struggling with, and being able to put language to it. So we kind of went through the reflection and the risk, unless there was something you wanted to.
No, yeah, perfect. All right. So habit 1 is to reflect. Habit 2 is risk, embracing risk. Let's go to habit 3.
The habit of releasing is habit number 3. So the habit of releasing is unique to the individual. And it could be, I used to be a runner. Before my first child, I was a runner. I was an athlete in college, and physical sports were a huge release for me for things like I had a lot of anger growing up, and physical sports really helped me work through some of that anger in a positive way.
Yeah.
Before I used to think anger was just bad. Now I'm like, I'm angry when I see injustice. I'm angry when people are sad. I'm angry. So it's a good anger because I know how to channel it now, which is a different habit. But so the habit of release is finding a process that allows you to take anything internalized and be able to work through it, be able to let go. So we can't receive anything until we first let go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we have a problem, if we don't let it go to some extent in some way through some methodology. So it could be writing. Julia Cameron wrote this book. Have you heard of Julia Cameron?
Yeah.
I was given that book in college and it changed my life because I got physically injured. I completely tore my ACL while playing a sport in college. And that was my whole life. So I'm like, no, what am I going to do? And I don't know how I came across the book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, but somehow I would be in class and I would have the book in the book that I was reading.
Yeah.
So it looked like I was reading whatever book the class was, but I was actually reading The Artist's Way.
Classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to Julia Cameron. Thank you for helping change my life. But it had the morning pages.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where for like every morning you just write a few pages. You don't reread it. You don't look through it. You don't try and edit it. But that started to develop for me the first time, the process of writing and helping me release things that I wasn't saying out loud. I hated talk therapy. I hated talking about feelings. I thought people would think I was weak if they knew some of the things I was struggling with. So writing was the first release I had where I could be real. Because I say there's no hope without honesty. If you're not actually getting real about things, if you're not getting real with how you feel about your finances or any other area you're struggling in, we can't deal with it. So that's why reflection is one. And then that risk of like, I think I'm worthy to kind of find a way to work through this, to navigate this, to take a step of faith. And then to have that release. Okay, so what is the way when I start to feel things that I'm going to release those feelings? So people pray, they meditate, they write, they stretch. I mean, there's so many things, but it's getting the internal out in an external way, if possible, and finding ways to release some of those thoughts that are circulating that might be harmful or unhealthy, or if unnoticed or unchecked for too long, can start to develop into a trajectory we don't want to go. What's a release practice you might enjoy?
Going to the gym definitely helps, especially if I've got a lot of like pent up nervousness or anxiety. Going to the gym helps a lot. Blasting music and then singing at the top of my lungs, singing off key at the top of my lungs while I'm blasting music. That's a really good one.
Do you like to go to concerts?
No. I'm short. I'm 5'1". So I don't like big crowds.
Oh man. Yes. Blasting music is a great way because then you can scream or yell or sing and you're releasing.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't mean something's good or bad. It's just, we're doing something with a feeling. We are taking back the ownership and saying like, you have rent in my home, like in my mind, but you don't live here. You don't own me. I'm going to sing you out. I'm going to write you out. I'm going to run you out. I'm going to lift you out, whatever. But if we don't have a regular process of release, I don't know if anyone's listening has read The Body Keeps Score, but things will be internalized in our body. And at some point, they have nowhere to go. They have to be released. And if the sooner we can develop a practice, it can be 5 minutes. It could be 15 minutes. It does not have to be an hour to go find me time. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's just the ability to lock in and release quickly and consistently, whatever that is. And so that is the habit of release, letting go, so that we can do habit number 4, which is to receive, which is a very difficult thing. Even people, have you heard the stories? You might know more about this, of people who win the lottery and then lose it.
Yes, and then very shortly they're back to square one. They're back to where they were when they started. Yeah,
my husband was just telling me about some people who inherited money from their parent, and then instead of getting a little bit of the money over time, they just took a big chunk and then lost it.
Right.
And because the practices in place beforehand weren't there.
Right.
And receiving is a very challenging thing to do when it comes to anything tied to our worth, right? We feel shame. Maybe we don't deserve something. Maybe we're less than or because of what we know that only we know, right? And the ability to receive maybe forgiveness, love, kindness, wealth, prosperity, those things can be blocked because we are not in an emotional habit of receiving them. We don't know what to do when we get them.
Right. And you see this a lot with sudden influxes of money. And in the two examples that you gave, those were both unearned. Lottery winnings and inheritance are both unearned. But we actually see this a lot, even with earned money, if it comes as a sudden influx. So one example would be athletes who, sign a major contract and suddenly they get, they go from having spent their whole life being fairly middle class and suddenly they get a lot of money all at once. You'll see that with some entertainers as well. With entrepreneurs also, who are scrappy and they're bootstrapping their business and it's very lean for a long time and then suddenly it hits. You see the same thing, not always, but often you see that same thing where when it hits and it goes big, they don't know what to do. And pretty soon that money is gone and their business is actually doing a little bit worse.
I would say it's actually very similar to how people are when they go viral or when people attain a certain amount of success online. When it goes from like nothing to something, there was especially after COVID, because a lot of people like took off in COVID and then there was a lot of public meltdowns. There was a lot of, because the expectations now increase, the visibility, the criticism, all of the things also increase with the visibility and the success, right? So there's multiple things happening when we gain whatever it is that we're looking to gain, wealth, success, whatever it is, visibility. There's other things that are also at play. And that's why I always go back to sustainability, because you can get where you're going, but are you going to stay there?
Yeah.
We can all get something, but can we keep it?
Right.
And it's those practices that we develop beforehand that I believe are attached to the values. So if I see value in the little, if I see value and can receive what could appear as small and I handle it well, and I start to do that more and more, that when the influx comes, I already have the practice because I practice it even with so-called a little. So the muscle, we'll call it, in workout, gym setting.
Right.
The muscle is there. I can handle more things. And I also know how to build the tools to have other people help me because I've already been doing it, even with what I think is a little.
I can understand how, for a person who's listening, I can understand how they might work on receiving a little bit over time, build that muscle a little bit every day.
Yeah.
But for a person who's listening who might one day get that sudden influx, maybe they're going to get an inheritance, for example, how should they prepare themselves to, when they know that they're likely to be in a situation where they haven't had time to build that muscle yet?
I would say you do have the time now. I think there are a lot of areas that there are root connections. So we might think that finances is completely separate from our relationship with someone, right? But a lot of how we deal with the feelings that navigate our decisions in either are root problems, root causes, have root sources. So I think that the more that the direct answer would be our sense of self-worth, our inherent value doesn't change no matter the visibility or our bank size. And it's really finding ways to get realigned with that this doesn't change anything. I'm still going to be hardworking. I'm still going to be creative. I'm still going to be passionate. I'm still going to be a good friend. I'm still going to design this room the way only I could design it. I'm still going to be scrappy about it, right? Because who I am doesn't change, but my resources now got unlocked to a point where I can rally in more support to help me navigate this. But I already have been doing that with where I'm at right now. And it's really about how we see ourselves, no matter what external is happening around us. And kind of what we said earlier, who we choose to be regardless of X, Y, and Z. We can look at that inheritage as this big thing, but we can also say, this is a big thing. That's true. But what's also true is I'm still me. I'm still hardworking. I'm still passionate. And I'm still going to be very creative with this. I'm still going to rally and support for this. I'm still going to identify what I need, what support would look like with this. Does that make some sense?
Right. Yeah.
But I think we can very much, I say with growth mindset, where we kind of got into a place of like, maybe it was teetering on like not as helpful when it became so performative about outcomes that I'm connecting with people on the ground, I would say, who are feeling paralyzed by perfection, needing to be productive and perfect and don't have any moments to breathe because they're just always doing, because the trajectory of growth mindset was like grow, grow, grow instead of it's okay to be too, right? And it's like both can exist and choosing who I'm going to be, knowing that maybe both can exist.
Habit 1 is reflect. Habit 2 is risk. Habit 3 is release. Habit 4 is receive. What's habit 5?
Habit 5 is one that makes me think of my mom because I'm one of 6 kids. My mom did not have it easy, and she would go to estate sales at 6 a.m. and look through the newspaper and go to garage sales, estate sales. And our entire home basically was refurbished furniture. She would reclaim it, and she saw beauty in things people threw away. She could make something someone disregarded that had no worth and give it a home, make it a part of our home. And we didn't notice the difference. And her ability to do that wasn't just in things. It was with people. We always had people who came and lived with us, people who she said were our friends that became her kids. She always sees just the value in things and in people. And even if society doesn't. And so this really helped inspire the 5th and final habit, which is repurposing. And it's seeing worth where others see waste. It's being able to say, anger isn't bad. I'm going to channel it. And it's going to help me create a crisis helpline. It's going to help me create an equity line during the civil unrest that was going on, which I did. It's going to help me create a social media app for young girls, where in the beginning of social media I did. But I would say that repurposing alone wasn't always successful, because I actually want to tie it back to a struggle I had with my finances, because I was very entrepreneurial. I was able to build things and repurpose things, but I couldn't receive things. So I had this, a while ago, I had this mobile app before AI could code for you. Okay. This is when you like hired someone to build it. You helped design all the UI, all of the things. So I knew nothing about technology, but I knew that young girls were taking their lives because they were being harassed online. So I was just, something snapped. I was like, I got to figure out something to do. I had no technical background. And so we built a community around it. We would do live events. And then the idea was, if girls could build community in person, then they'd get a special code to activate an online community that they could then be a part of. But I wanted to kind of test, it was a beta of like, could we create more safe processes to onboard? And could the girls just specifically have more things that catered to what they were needing in that time? So did a lot of like research, qualitative and quantitative studies around the country with that age group. And anyways, we developed this app. We have a few thousand people. I have a small team. And then I have a wait list of about 2,000. I won some awards of innovation and just impact. So we had some seed funding. And then I moved to the Bay. And I think, oh, I'm going to really take this thing to the next place. Okay.
Yeah.
But I was so terrified that I could never be that person. Even I would say, honestly, financially, like I could build stuff from scratch, but can I run a successful company? I did not think that I could receive any more funding. Like I didn't think I was worthy to do it. Even though we had the proven MVP, which does not mean most valuable player if you're listening and you're an athlete. It means
minimum viable product,
which I had to learn.
Or minimum valuable product.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
We're going to go with that.
Yeah.
Claiming that.
Minimum valuable product.
And I wanted to bring this up because I think it was really a powerful moment where on paper I was doing all the things and externally maybe there was some level of success, but I internally could not receive. And it's funny because it also was, if you like expose that time in my relational life, I was struggling to receive love in a relationship. So they were not separate. Remember we talked about like that root,
right?
Those root causes. So these habits are designed because they affect every area of our lives. And the more we have hope, the more we can build processes to navigate them, not solutions, the processes to navigate them so that we can start to problem solve, emotionally regulate, build those relationships.
So what would repurposing look like for, let's say, a person who's listening to this, who has some type of financial goal? You know, pretty much, I mean, the type of people who listen to personal finance podcasts are people with financial goals. And that they have hope, but they also have obstacles. What would repurposing look like in that context?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say if you are with your financial goals, whatever obstacle you're going through, usually repurposing is attached to sometimes a problem that we feel that we have, or that maybe we have empathy or compassion towards other people having. So maybe you're on your journey and you're chilling right now. Nothing too crazy is going on, but you recognize there's still a problem for other people on their journey. And maybe where you're at right now is it gets expanded and widened to where you actually offer support for somebody else in a place that you already came out of. Maybe you're, say, first base.
Right.
And then you made it second base. And now maybe it's just like, how can I repurpose some of my first base struggles for someone who's struggling to get there right now?
This is kind of like how you're always giving advice to the version of you of 5 years ago.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of why, and I don't want to speak for you, I don't know, why you wanted to, begin this community and this podcast is because there were areas maybe you recognize that you had to learn the hard way. And maybe you wanted to help make it a clear route for other people.
Yeah.
Help them navigate.
Yes. And tuition at the School of Hard Knocks is expensive.
Exactly. Yeah. And guess what? You've been designing a life that looks like probably no one else around you that you came up with because you identified something that was a pain point, a problem, and you repurposed it. You gave it new colors. You gave it a mic. You gave it some lights. You gave it a nice little chair. You got a team around you.
Yeah. And we're in a padded room.
Yes, there is padding. There's a fake or real tree.
That's a fake tree.
Okay. You're already doing it. And that I believe where people are right now, that there are areas they can apply themselves immediately. They're not where they've been. And somebody else is. And a lot of repurposing is about service to others. And guess what that does? It builds community.
Right.
And what do we innately desire?
Community and connection. Yes. Right. Because that's the antidote to the loneliness.
Yep.
And loneliness is the precursor to hopelessness and despair.
Yeah. Because I'm honest. I mean, I want to be honest here. Like, it was really hard in certain areas of booms in technology and things like that to watch other people succeed around me and to know that I got like swallowed by a wave of fear. And it was so hard. I actually ended that specific app that I was telling you about because when we moved, I had no family in the area. And I couldn't find childcare. And I was in grad school, which I dropped out 3 times. I want to clarify that. My path was not just linear.
Right.
And it was really, really hard to have a team in a different state. And my kid was just struggling a lot with the move. And it was just really hard to do it all. It's a lie when they say you can. And I had to realize that I could be upset that other people are going at a trajectory further than me, that are more successful, that are getting the outcomes, that are getting the funding, that are building their teams. And I heard you know, something about how people who try a lot, we fail a lot. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I was in the middle of that. And so if you're listening and you're in a place where you tried something and it didn't work out, that I hear you, I feel you, I acknowledge that. And I hope you reflect on it. I hope you identify what that struggle was. If you stayed silent about it, why? What would support look like or feel like for you now? And what can you stay hopeful for? What can that maybe moment be? Because I had to realize that maybe the time at home was what was needed. And that was enough. And maybe I would build again someday. And it didn't have to change who I was. I'm always going to be a builder. I'm always going to be a risk taker. And I had to feel through that. But after, you know, in hindsight, I realized I never stopped being me through the process, and that's the win. I may not have the wealth from that business that I would have liked to, but I stayed me through this process. And I think that is probably one of the scariest things, is losing the things that you love about you in the process of wealth or prosperity or whatever our goals are.
Right.
But I would have liked that to be successful, though.
Well, thank you for spending this time with us. Where can people find you if they'd like to learn more?
Yeah, right now you can find me online, Dr. Julia Garcia. The book is The 5 Habits of Hope, Stories and Strategies to Help You Find Your Way. It's also on audio format, which I had a ton of fun doing. So if you would prefer to listen to it in the car, you'll hear me on there. It's on Spotify, as well as all places where podcasts are.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.